Welcome back to Courtroom Conversations on Classic Courtroom. Your channel for deep dives into the most impactful legal cases. I'm your host, Dylan Brooks Hamilton. And if you find this exploration of the legal system as fascinating as I do, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated. Today we're diving into a case that's a stark reminder of the weight of our choices, the devastating consequences of drunk driving, and the enduring power of love and loss. Joining us today to unpack this complex case is legal expert Susan Kelly Ashford.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's set the stage. April 28th, 2023, Folly Beach, South Carolina. A picture-perfect setting for a wedding celebration. Our story centers around newlywed Samantha Miller and Eric Hutchinson. Leaving their reception brimming with joy, ready to embark on their new life together, they chose a golf cart, kind of a charming mode of transport to navigate the narrow beach roads. But their journey was tragically cut short. And this is where our deep dive begins. A car driven by 27-year-old Lee Komoroski collided with their golf cart. The impact was devastating. The golf cart was thrown 100 yards. Samantha, still in her wedding dress, was killed instantly. And Eric suffered severe injuries, including a brain injury and multiple broken bones. It's hard to imagine the scene. The stark contrast between the joy of the wedding celebration and the immediate devastation. What strikes me is the speed Komoroski was traveling, 65 miles per hour in a 25-mile-per-hour zone. It's a detail that really underscores the recklessness involved.
Absolutely. That kind of blatant disregard for safety, especially on a narrow beach road often shared with pedestrians and slower-moving vehicles, it's simply unacceptable. And then, of course, there's the matter of Komoroski's blood alcohol content, 0.26%, more than 3 times the legal limit. This shifts the incident from a tragic accident to a crime with severe consequences.
This case seems to be a stark illustration of the very real dangers of drunk driving. It's a choice with potentially life-altering consequences, not just for the driver, but for innocent individuals like Samantha and Eric.
Precisely. It's a sobering reminder that every time someone chooses to drive under the influence, they're putting themselves and everyone else on the road at risk.
It's unimaginable, the pain Eric must have endured, waking up in a hospital bed to the news of his wife's death just hours after their wedding. It's heartbreaking. The legal proceedings against Komoroski were swift and severe, weren't they?
Yes, they were. Komoroski faced charges of reckless homicide, felony DUI causing death, and 2 counts of felony DUI causing great bodily injury. These charges, given the circumstances and the evidence, especially her shockingly high blood alcohol content, were certainly warranted. The prosecution had a strong case.
And ultimately, Komoroski pleaded guilty to all charges. In her statement, she acknowledged her struggles with alcohol addiction and admitted the selfishness of her actions. She also expressed remorse and promised to dedicate her life to helping other addicts and warning against the dangers of drunk driving.
It's important to acknowledge that a guilty plea and expressions of remorse, while potentially a step towards taking responsibility, cannot erase the pain and loss inflicted on the victims and their families.
Absolutely. No words can truly compensate for a life lost for the future stolen. The judge sentenced Komoroski to 25 years in prison, the maximum sentence for felony DUI causing deaths in South Carolina. The sentences for the other charges will run concurrently, meaning she'll serve all sentences at the same time. This sentence sends a powerful message about the severity of drunk driving.
It does. The sentence highlights the gravity of the crime and the lasting impact it has had on the victims and their loved ones.
Let's shift our focus now to those most deeply affected by this tragedy, starting with Eric Hutchinson. His testimony in court was truly heartbreaking. He spoke about the joy of his wedding day, the love he shared with Samantha, and then the gut-wrenching moment when everything changed. He described their final moments together on the golf cart and the agonizing reality of waking up in the hospital without her.
It's crucial to remember that Eric's suffering extends far beyond his physical injuries. The emotional trauma, the loss of his soulmate just hours after their wedding. That kind of pain is immeasurable. His words paint a vivid picture of the profound human cost of drunk driving, a cost that goes far beyond legal sentences and financial settlements.
His life is forever altered. He faces ongoing physical therapy and counseling to cope with his injuries and the immense emotional burden he carries. And he even expressed a wish that he had died instead of Samantha. It's a raw, visceral expression of his grief and despair.
Yes, and it speaks volumes about the depth of their love and the immensity of his loss. It's a poignant reminder that the consequences of this crime extend far beyond the courtroom.
There were also some legal settlements reached in this case. Eric received $863,000 from various parties: the bars that served Komoroski Alcohol, her insurance company, and the rental car company.
These settlements represent a degree of accountability on the part of those who may have contributed to the circumstances leading up to the crash. However, as Eric himself stated, no amount of money can ever truly compensate for the loss of Samantha.
It's a sobering reminder that some things are simply irreplaceable.
Exactly. Financial settlements, while they may provide some practical support, can never truly address the profound emotional and psychological damage caused by such a loss. No amount of money can bring back a loved one or erase the pain of their absence.
The impact of this tragedy ripples outward, reaching far beyond Eric. Samantha's family was left devastated. Her father, Brad Warner, delivered a powerful statement in court. He expressed his disgust at what he perceived as Komoroski's initial lack of remorse and vowed to hate her for the rest of his life.
His raw, unfiltered grief is a visceral reminder of the profound and lasting pain inflicted on families by drunk driving accidents. It underscores the fact that these incidents don't just impact individuals, they tear through families and communities, leaving behind a legacy of pain and loss.
It's clear that the ripple effects of this accident extend far beyond the immediate victims. This case serves as a stark reminder of the wider societal consequences of drunk driving. It impacts families, friends, communities. The trauma reverberates outward.
Absolutely. It raises important questions about personal responsibility and the measures we as a society need to take to prevent these tragedies. While we can't undo the past, we can certainly learn from it and work towards a future where such incidents are far less frequent.
So let's talk about prevention. What concrete steps can we take to curb drunk driving and make our roads safer?
On an individual level, it starts with making responsible choices. If you're planning to drink, designate a driver, use ride-sharing services, or simply stay put. There's absolutely no excuse for getting behind the wheel after consuming alcohol.
It seems like it boils down to planning ahead and prioritizing safety over convenience.
Exactly. And it's also about looking out for each other. If you see someone who's had too much to drink, don't let them drive. Speak up, intervene, offer alternatives.
Sometimes being a good friend means having a difficult conversation.
Absolutely. Now, beyond personal responsibility, there are also societal measures that can help deter drunk driving.
Like stricter laws and enforcement.
Yes. Tougher penalties for DUI offenses, increased police checkpoints, and public awareness campaigns highlighting the dangers of drunk driving can all play a significant role.
And what about technology? I've heard about ignition interlock devices that prevent someone from starting a car if they've been drinking.
That's a promising development. Ignition interlock devices are becoming more common, and studies show they're effective in reducing repeat offenses among DUI offenders. It's like having a built-in safety net, adding an extra layer of protection.
It sounds like a multi-pronged approach is needed to tackle this issue effectively.
Precisely. It requires a combination of individual responsibility, strong legal deterrence, community involvement, and technological advancements. It's a collective effort to create a culture where drunk driving is simply unacceptable. And remember, it's not just about avoiding legal trouble. It's about protecting lives, including your own.
That's a powerful message. And it brings us back to Lee Komoroski's sentencing. As we mentioned, she received the maximum of 25 years. What are your thoughts on the sentence?
Sentencing is always a complex issue. There are many factors to consider: the nature of the crime, the defendant's history, the impact on the victims, and societal deterrence. In this case, the judge clearly felt that the maximum sentence was warranted. Given the severity of the crime and the need to send a strong message about the consequences of drunk driving,
Some might argue that 25 years is a harsh sentence, especially given Komoroski's remorse and her stated commitment to helping others. Is there a possibility that the sentence, while sending a strong message, might overshadow the potential for rehabilitation?
that's a valid point. Sentencing should always be nuanced and take into account individual circumstances. While a strong deterrent is essential, the justice system should also aim to rehabilitate offenders, offering them a chance to reintegrate into society as productive citizens. It's a delicate balance.
But on the other hand, Samantha Miller's family has been given a life sentence of grief. No amount of prison time can bring her back or erase their pain.
That's true. There's no sentence that can truly provide justice in a case like this. The loss of a loved one, especially in such a sudden and tragic manner, leaves a void that can never be filled. The legal system can only attempt to address the crime itself, but the emotional and psychological scars remain.
It's a heartbreaking situation all around. And it makes me wonder, beyond the legal aspects, what are the long-term impacts on the community as a whole? Folly Beach is known for its relaxed atmosphere, the golf carts, the weddings. How does an incident like this affect the perception of safety and the overall well-being of the community?
That's a really important point. An incident like this can shake a community to its core. It can lead to fear, distrust, and a sense of vulnerability. People may be hesitant to engage in activities they once enjoyed. And the carefree atmosphere of a place like Folly Beach can be tainted by the memory of the tragedy.
So it's not just about the individuals directly involved. It's about the collective sense of security and well-being of the entire community.
Exactly. It highlights the interconnectedness of a community and how the actions of one person can have far-reaching consequences, affecting the social fabric and the sense of shared identity.
This leads us to a crucial question. How can a community heal and move forward after such a tragedy? What steps can be taken to rebuild trust and restore a sense of safety?
Healing is a process, and it takes time. Open communication, community dialogues, and support groups can help people process their grief and anger. Memorials and tributes can honor the victims and acknowledge the collective loss. But perhaps, most importantly, channeling the grief and anger into positive action can be a powerful way to move forward. This could involve advocating for stricter DUI laws, supporting victims' families, or raising awareness about the dangers of drunk driving.
It's about turning tragedy into a catalyst for positive change.
Precisely. By working together, communities can rebuild and emerge stronger, more resilient, and more committed to preventing future tragedies. This case, as tragic as it is, offers a powerful lesson. It reminds us that our choices have consequences, and sometimes those consequences can be devastating. But it also shows that we can make a difference through awareness, education, and action.
This has been a really insightful conversation. Thanks for sharing your expertise with us.
My pleasure. It's important to have these discussions. By shedding light on these complex issues, we can hopefully contribute to a safer and more responsible society.
This is a good stopping point for part 2 of our deep dive into this tragic case. But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with part 3 of our conversation about this case, right here on Classic Courtroom. And remember to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this deep dive. Welcome back to Courtroom Conversations, right here on Classic Courtroom.
It's great to be back.
As we conclude our deep dive into this tragic case, it's clear that the conversation doesn't end here.
That's right. This case, while deeply saddening, can serve as a powerful catalyst for change. It's an opportunity to reflect on our own choices and advocate for a culture where drunk driving is simply unacceptable.
So what steps can we as individuals and as communities take to make a real difference in preventing these tragedies?
Well, it starts with education. We need to have open and honest conversations about the dangers of drunk driving, especially with young people who might be more prone to risky behavior.
It's about dispelling those myths, right? Making it crystal clear that there's no such thing as a safe amount of alcohol to consume before getting behind the wheel.
Exactly. Even one drink can impair judgment and reaction time, increasing the risk of an accident. And beyond education, we need to actively promote responsible alternatives, like designated drivers, ride-sharing services, and public transportation.
It's about creating a social environment where these options are not only encouraged, but expected.
Absolutely. We need to shift the social norms around drinking and driving. Imagine a night out where planning for a safe ride home is just as routine as deciding where to go for dinner.
And of course, we can't overlook the importance of stricter laws and enforcement.
Certainly not. Increased penalties for DUI offenses, more frequent sobriety checkpoints, and a zero-tolerance policy for underage drinking and driving can all play a significant role in deterring this dangerous behavior.
These measures, while sometimes seen as inconvenient, are ultimately about saving lives.
They are. And it's essential to remember that drunk driving is not just a legal issue. It's a public health crisis. We need to invest in research to better understand the factors that contribute to drunk driving and develop more effective prevention strategies.
That makes sense. Addressing the root causes of this problem is crucial for finding long-term solutions.
Precisely. We also need to expand access to treatment options for alcohol addiction and support programs for those struggling with substance abuse. It's about recognizing that addiction is a disease that requires compassion and comprehensive care.
And this brings us back to the community. We talked about the ripple effects of this tragedy, the impact on Folly Beach. How can a community heal and move forward after such a devastating event?
Healing takes time. It requires open communication, empathy, and a willingness to support one another. Community dialogues, support groups, and even memorials can help people process their grief and anger in a healthy way.
It's about creating a space for collective mourning and healing.
Exactly. But beyond simply coping with the loss, it's crucial for communities to channel their grief and anger into positive action.
So what might that look like in practice?
It could involve advocating for stricter DUI laws, organizing awareness campaigns, or supporting the families of victims. It could also mean working with local businesses to promote responsible alcohol service practices. It's about turning tragedy into a catalyst for lasting change, creating a legacy of safety and responsibility in honor of those who were lost.
This case, as tragic as it is, offers a powerful reminder that we all have a role to play in preventing drunk driving.